Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shobha Shetty. I'm a practice manager for agriculture and food in East and Southern Africa. I'm based in Paris. And really delighted to be part of this webinar today. We actually, we had a precursor of this community of practice in Africa, East and South. So very glad to see this now really sort of taking off across the bank and IFC. So a few words on this urban food systems community of practice. With over half the world's population now residing in towns and cities, urban areas are at the center of the food system. Cities will continue to grow. By 2050, close to 70% of the world's population, or some 6.5 billion people, will be living in cities. And 90% of this growth is occurring in developing countries. Yet cities have their own particular challenges related to the food system. In general, diet quality is much poorer among urban consumers, especially among the more disadvantaged urban consumers. Affordability and availability of healthy food play a role, but urbanization in itself leads to changes in dietary habits as people engage in salaried work away from home and are more exposed to and consume more of processed and unhealthy foods. Cities are also highly vulnerable to disruptions in critical food supplies, and we really saw that during the COVID pandemic. Climate change makes supply chains even more exposed to these disruptions. In addition, more land will be converted to cities, especially in scenarios where we respond poorly to climate change. And growing urban areas will overlap with food producing areas, both for crops and livestock, and this will pose particular challenges for our future food supplies. The World Bank Group recognizes the importance of urban food systems and the effects that they will also have on rural areas and on the wider global food system transformation, which is why we have created an urban food systems community of practice. This COP is a joint initiative between the World Bank's Agriculture and Food Global Practice, the Urban Global Practice, the Urban Resilience and Land Global Practice, the Poverty Global Practice, and our sister organization in the private sector, the IFC, International Finance Corporation. And we are doing this all in partnership with a consultative group on international agriculture research, the CGIAR. The objective of this community of practice is really to provide a platform for open exchange and collaboration across the World Bank Group with member and partner organizations with an aim to identify investment needs and policy opportunities, as well as to explore how these may be operationalized. So a few words on the context for today's webinar. Today's session will discuss how public procurement of food, for example, schools, healthcare institutions, nursing homes, etc., can help shape the food system and contribute to more healthy and nutritious diets. We will learn about how procurement can be used to support equity in public schools by enabling better student retention through school meals, how procurement can be used to enact dietary guidelines and shaping the demand for healthy organic food, and how cities can develop their procurement regulations accordingly. This is the second webinar of our fiscal year of this Urban Food Systems COP webinar series. These webinars aim to extend the Urban Food Systems Community of Practice platform to leverage the knowledge and expertise of a network of researchers, development practitioners, and decision makers on a variety of pressing topics. So let me say a few words about our speakers today. It's really, you have a fantastic agenda, and I'm sorry that due to a prior commitment, I will not be able to stay through the end of it, but I'll stay for as long as I possibly can. Anyway, so with us today to introduce this topic and to moderate the session is Claire Bouillon from EAT and the Food Trails Initiative. Claire Bouillon is EAT City's Senior Engagement Officer and is the project lead for EAT in Food Trails, which is a 4-year EU-funded project. And for those of you who are not familiar, EAT is actually a non-profit organization dedicated to transforming our global food system through sound science, impatient disruption, and novel partnerships. So I took that from your website. I love the impatient disruption part of it. Claire supports EAT's cities projects and their efforts to transform urban environments to provide healthier and more sustainable diets for all. We will soon hear her talk more about the Food Trails initiatives and how it is supporting cities in shaping more sustainable food systems. Today, we will also have with us Andrea Magarini, Bettina Bergman-Madsen, and Maria Tarafa Orpinel and Montserrat Natter-Joffre from the cities of Milan, Copenhagen, and Barcelona. Thank you very much for this opportunity to open this really interesting webinar. Thanks to OSA and other organizers in the COP. But now over to you, Claire. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shobha, and thanks for the introduction. So yes, as mentioned, my name is Claire, and I am here on behalf of EAT, actually. So, and I would also like to thank the World Food Systems community of practice for hosting this gathering. We're really happy to be here and hope everybody enjoys it. So as mentioned, I will be moderating the session and as well as on behalf of the Food Trails project. So before we get into the topic, I will introduce Food Trails briefly. So as mentioned, it's an EU Horizon 2020 project, and it's led by Milan Municipality, who we are very lucky is here with us today. And the project brings together 11 cities in Europe who are working to co-create pilot activities as part of their food policy development in their cities. So Milan and Copenhagen will share their work today, and they're both part of this project. And Barcelona, who is also with us today, is coming on behalf of as part of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. So we will hear from these three cities on how public procurement supports urban food systems. So just to note as well that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on Food Trails websites in the coming weeks. So in the past years, about what a healthy and sustainable diet is, but we want to know how we can help everyone eat this way. So how can city municipalities enable healthy and sustainable diets while supporting just food systems? So as mentioned, one approach is through public procurement, so the food that a city purchases for public meals, for example, in school canteens, as Shobha mentioned. So our panelists will share examples of how their cities are purchasing food in a way that contributes to the kind of food future we all want. So they will each share a 10-minute presentation on how their municipality are using these practices as tools. And please do add your questions in the chat, and we will have about half an hour afterwards for a Q&A after the presentations. So to kick us off, our first speaker is Andrea Magarini from Milan. He is coordinator of Milan Food Policy in the mayor's office since 2017. So Andrea, I leave it to you. Please take it away.
Thank you, Claire, for this kind introduction. I'm start sharing my screen. Okay. So thanks again for this opportunity. It's a very pleasure to be here with all of you in this community of practices. And I want to present our activities of investment to shaping our food public procurement in Milan. Our journey started in 2015 with the launch of the Milan food policy. That is a strategy of our city council for work towards a more sustainable and inclusive food system. In this way, the Milan school canteen system are the main driver for achieving our goals of the food policy. And in Milan, since many years, our school canteens are managed by an in-house providing model, so in which we we move all the manager topics in the hands of our public company, a municipal agency that is named Milano Ristorazione, and is a fully controlled company by our municipalities, so by our food policy department. Here you can see the map of all the canteens all around the cities, just to have an idea of the different infrastructure that are part of this process. And we are serving per day 77 meals for children, as well 50 million meals per year. What we are doing with public procurement, we are trying to exploit the power of this procurement to invest in our local food system. So through innovative criteria, we want to inform the market, and we want to achieve our goals, also engaging good tender, the good wholesalers, and also in some cases also some local actors. And we are trying to mobilizing investments and to achieving different co-benefit on the environment, economy, and society. How we are developing this approach? First of all, by exploiting the power of different actors, internal and external, to share our procurement goals. The percentage of organic, the percentage of fair trade, the different co-benefit that we want to achieve, and the different tools that we want to do, to implement. And also to give sometimes to our technician to do their job. So not to try to interfere with their activities, but try to have a moment of sharing the goals and a moment in which they can implement technically all of these activities. And then together try to analyze and report our results. Here are some criteria that we are exploiting. Our model in which we do tender are the most economically and advantageous tender approach, in which we have a different weight of economic offers as well technical and quality ones. So the 30% based on the price and the 70% for the quality of their proposal. And here are some of technical criteria that our procurement department of Milano Ristorazione, so the municipal agency, are implementing. So in some case, for trying to have some points for the economic environmental sustainability, we are speaking about low packaging, and here also the certification, the standard, the low emission transport, in which we are monitoring the emission of NOx, the environmental management and other kind of certification, as well the greenhouse gas certification. And other are linked to the short supply chains, so we are putting criteria to try to have a short supply chain standard. And for short supply chains in Italy, we have a national law that define what is a short supply chain, in which there are not a lot of intermediaries in this way, as well 0 kilometer, in which it is not zero, of course, but is in a radius from Milan of 70 kilometers. Some other criteria, innovative criteria regarding the animal welfare, other regarding the social impact of our tenders, so gender parity certification. And in Italy, we have a law dedicated on this, and also the social accountability, so the standard that you can see here marked. Other are regarding fishery certification and so on, and we are also trying to introduce a new criteria of evaluation based on some educational activities that the tenderer are providing to us. So try to have the occasion to have the local farmers, when we are engaging local farmers, to go inside the school to present their activities, as well to move some children, some classrooms in the fields to see the different work that our farmers are doing in the farms. So all the time in which we are introducing a new criteria, we are trying also to explain in a very pragmatic way what the different tenders are doing in that criteria. It's more easy when we find a certification, because it's easy to understand if they have that kind of certification or not, or other way, like for the educational activities, we are trying to explain in a narrative way what we want to see. But the combination of all of these tenders, criteria, are applied in a different way in the different tenders that we are launched. So here are 3 examples on the conventional milk, on the organic milk, and on the organic yogurt that are some of the last tender that our municipal agency launched. And for the technical point of view, so the points number 70, here you can see how we are exploit the different weight of the different points for the different criteria. And the combination of these are facilitating the engagement of the good tender. We are also trying to inform the market by publish a statement on our procurement planning. So each year for the next 2, we are anticipating the different tenders that we are providing, and this is very important because are facilitating for us as municipality or for the different tender the possibility to be aware of what are in the pipeline of publishing in the next years. And all the time, more or less, we have about 30 million euros in which we are preparing this kind of statement. This is very important because it's a way in which we are publicly inform the market. And then by the combination of all of these activities, so good criteria, informing the market, and in some cases also some moment in which we are presenting publicly our strategies, we are achieving 3 different co-benefits. So on the social point of view, our municipal agency, Milan Ristorazioni, was awarded by BioGreen 2022 awards by the innovative criteria in the field of social impact. And so some products under the framework under the label of food traits, as well, already mentioned, the gender parity certification and the social accountability. And this award is a national-based award. So they are comparing the different tenders of Italian procurement departments, and we was awarded in this way. On the economical point of view, for the 2023, Milan Ristorazione, so the municipal agency, is meant to purchase 22 million euros. And so all the time in which we are able to organize short supply chains, for engaging local farmers or engaging local actors, is a way in which we are strengthening the possibility to have a secure tender for the next years. And so in this way, again, we can be a driver for our local farmers and for our local wholesalers. We have up to now 26 food production that are marketed under the label 0 kilometers, so in the radius of 70 kilometers from Milan, on the total of about 100 of food products. So more or less, the 25% is in this framework. And one of these is exactly inside the municipality of Milan. In the southern part of Milan, we have a huge agricultural park, and here you can see the farms where all the rice of the school canteens of Milan are produced. Because a few years ago we first with a pilot action and then opening a tender, and this farm was part of this, in which we launched a tender for the rice tender, and 1 farmers are applying, and so on the total of 240 tons of rice is produced by all of the fields that you can see in the slide. And here you can see also the value of this tender. In which way we are also working on other supply chains, on other tenders. And so the idea is to try to have a dashboard in where when we launch a tender in which we know that there are local possibility for participating in the tender, we are facilitating this kind of market informing. Finally, the environmental co-benefit that are one in which we are more advanced related to the others is important because working on public procurement, we have a lot of data that are collected and that are part of our process of food policy implementation. Analyzing this data, we know the percentage of organic. We are at 54% of organic, but more important, we are analyzing ex post and sometimes also ex ante all of our greenhouse gas emission through a calculator that was provided by the World Research Institute in the framework of Cool Food Pledge. And here are the data of the last 6 years. We started in 2015 when was approved our Milan food policy by the City Council, and all of the year we are sending all of the data of the procurement, the different weight, to the WRI, the World Research Institute, and they are converted it into greenhouse gas emissions. So year by year we see the different decreasement of this impact, and and here you can see the decreasement of 42% of the greenhouse gas emission of our public procurement. That is a very huge amount of tons of CO2. As well, also some another graphs on the right part in which you can see the achievement per each 1,000 of kilocal cooked. That is about a cutting of 38% of our emission. So again, by working on public procurement, we can achieve different co-benefits, and are also important to strengthen our relation to the market. In this way, we can see that the City of Milan, through its municipal agencies, are good investors for its local food system. I'm concluding I finished my presentation. Up to you, Claire.
Thank you so much, Andrea. That was really, really interesting and great to hear about Milan's perspective on procurement as a tool to support your goals. And yeah, congratulations on all of these co-benefits you're achieving, and great to hear. I don't think we have any questions yet in the chat, but please do share any questions or comments that we can get to later. In the meantime, we will move on to our next speaker then, Bettina Bergman-Vansen, Chief Procurement Officer in Copenhagen Municipality. Bettina is a specialist in procurement of sustainable and organic food for the municipality's 900 kitchens. And since 2001, Copenhagen had a goal of reaching 90% organic food in the city, and achieved this goal in 2016. So Bettina, please tell us more about this.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for having me here. It's an honor. I'm delighted to share my screen. I will try now and see if it works. Can you see my screen now? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Well, I am a practitioner where I do procurement and I do the contracts for the municipality of Copenhagen, and I was really inspired by the presentation of Andrea and what they did in Milan recently with their food procurement, which is something that I really would love to dive into. In Copenhagen, I always sometimes feel like a mountain climber, where we have to look at the mountains and cross them with all the political goals that we have to put into the procurement, or that could be put into the procurement, so that we can actually achieve them and prove that we achieve them. And that's also what I liked with Andrea's point, where we could actually see that we are reducing the CO2 emission. So as you can already hear now, I believe that the role of the procurement lawyer is a really highly important role, and we can actually be some of the people that help the food chain to move in a more sustainable direction, and bring the political goals into life, all the way to the public plate where we serve the meals for the citizens of, for example, Copenhagen or Milan. To do this, it needs a procurement specialist, where somebody who is willing to not just look at how you usually make a contract and at the budget, but also to look at the wider perspective on how you can incorporate different sustainability goals or criteria, and rethink how we usually do things. Often we do this with what we call conversion agents in Copenhagen. We hire people to help our own kitchen staff to cook differently. Like Claire just said, we have our own kitchens. We have 900 kitchens approximately, where we cook mainly on site. They menu plan themselves, but to do so, they need help to do this differently. We started with the organic transition in 2001, where we decided to go for 90% organic. And we did this because the politicians saw that the groundwater of Copenhagen were getting polluted by pesticides. So that's how they decided and why they decided that we wanted to go organic. Now we don't talk about the organic anymore. Right now we are at 85.7%, I think, last year. Now we just talk about how to become more sustainable in the way we cook and what we cook and the meals, more healthy meals to the citizens. Then we have very healthy meals already, but to do it even more and more targeted towards the different age group. We also talk very closely with the market to see what they can deliver for us and how far they are in their sustainable transition, and so that we put the right goals into the tender that they can meet, but also so that we use the tenders to push the market a little bit to meet more our demands. And then, of course, it needs a close dialogue with the kitchen, because if our procurement do not meet the demands of the kitchen, they will not be used as sport. And if they're not used, then we will not reach our goals that we put into the procurement. So these things all creates the possibility to change if it all goes hand in hand. In Copenhagen, like we said, we have high political ambitions. We are striving towards the 90% organic still. So when I do procurement, they are 100% organic. In the beginning, our market were not ready for that. So we did a market analysis to say, where is the market ready and steady on the prices of organic food? And then slowly we just increased that, and now we are 100% organic in our food procurement. And then when the percentage is a little bit lower, it's because of delivery failure or many things now with the food crisis and things, we can see that on the percentage. In our contracts, we are working on preventing food waste. So I wrote into the contract material that we will help the supplier reduce their food waste on their supplier side. That actually helped us get better prices in the contract. We did this saying that all the goods that we mention in our tender should be ready to get delivered every day, but some of them actually we can change if we see that they generate waste, so that then the kitchen staff, if they need these kind of products, they should order them in advance. It's something very simple. You can actually write it in to the tender material pretty easy. It's just a line or two, but then it actually has huge consequences. And that's why I mean tender material can be such a powerful tool to help change the food system into the right direction. We just have to think about how we can use it. Seasonality and diversity. We want many different kind of fruit and vegetables in season wherever they are grown, so that we make sure we ensure the biodiversity and support that. We look at climate-friendly food, so we make sure that the food that we get has a higher weight. For example, I'll talk more about that. Packaging, green vehicles, and so on and so forth. You're welcome to ask questions about this later on if you want me to go more into depth. We have new dietary guidelines in Copenhagen, or in Denmark, actually not just Copenhagen, where the government linked the dietary guidelines to become more sustainable, not just healthy for us, but also more sustainable. So they are linked to the sustainable goals to reduce CO2 emission. And they are in English on this link if you want to read more about that. That has also been incorporated into my tender by trying to make a climate weight on the food that we have prioritized. For example, nuts, grains, and lentils. They get a higher weight. We call it a climate weight, where we add it on the tonnage that we usually buy, and then add it with the kilograms, so that we can the price per kilogram, so that those kind of food get a bigger weight into the procurement, which then make them more valuable to put a fair price on. This is some of the tools you can use to promote the market to supply more healthy food for you. That led me to another question of what does a public meal actually cost, and what is it the right cost that we are actually asking. So right now we are looking into the protein transition and trying to do a reallocation calculation on what does it cost to eat like we do now, and to eat how we should in the future. Maybe we should shift some of the money that we buy for food into some of the money that we use for labor. Some of these things we're looking into together with this food trail project, so we can share the results when we have the final calculation method to inspire others. We also made a potato tender with another project called Coach, because we think it's important that we open up our tenders towards small and medium-sized enterprises and farmers, especially the farmer side, because we think we should strengthen our market where there are suppliers that would like to give a direct bid into the tenders. And here we have a market that really would like to give a bid directly, and also to have a stronger connection amongst the farmer and the children in schools. So here we want the farmers to tell the kids why it's such a brilliant job to become a farmer. And I know that Italy is also working, Milan is also working on something similar. So it would be really interesting also in the food trail project to share results for this. How can this be done? So we are also trying to make a video, because we have some teaching material about this with this project. But here you can use the tender actually to put these criteria into the tender, and then the farmer, he knows what he wants to give a bid to. All these things we wrote into a teaching material because we have in Denmark a national food procurement officer network, where we got this idea that we wanted everything in writing. So it's kind of like the state of the art material, and we'll update it as long as we go and we get more wise and more learning on how to do things. But a very good thing for me and is creating this network of national food procurement officers, because we share the same language. Sometimes you can hear I'm also fumbling about the words, because it can be hard to find the right words. So here we can share ideas and nerdy things on how to do things. And we have the teaching material. It's in English because we wrote it with the World Health Organization. And I put the link so that you can find more inspiration about how we did procurement and how we think that you can work with these things into procurement. But we also are building a EU food procurement officer group. We also call it food people group, because sometimes it's not called officers, sometimes it's not called lawyers. So now it's just procurement people group, where we can share similar ideas with the Best Remap project. So and it's also linked to DJ Sante. So here we actually, and those are the one working on the farm to fork criteria. So we make sure that they are actually implementable when they are finished. And that's why I think this having the focus on procurement and what we can do with procurement is so essential. I think that was it for me right now. So my contacts, if you want, and I hope I kept the time. I hope so.
Yes, Bettina, you were right on time. Thank you so much. You did great. No, a lot of information, and it's always great to hear about your passion for public procurement and Copenhagen's role on the topic. It's great to hear about how you're making a link between food and actually how to make meals tasty, healthy, sustainable, and integrating it into many different aspects of life. So yeah, thank you, Bettina.
Thank you.
We are still open to questions, so please, if you have any, add them to the chat and we can take them during the Q&A. So our third city is Barcelona City Council. And with us, we have two speakers today. So Maria Tarafa Orpinen and Montserrat Mateu Jové. Sorry if I butchered the pronunciation. So Maria works in the urban food policy section of the council. And actually for this presentation, our speakers will be speaking in Spanish. And what you can do is to switch for live interpretation to English. There's a little globe at the bottom left of your screen that you can click on, and there you can choose the audio, so English for those who do not speak Spanish. So I will leave it now to Maria to tell us about Barcelona's work.
Thank you. Hola, empezamos ya, si os parece. Gracias, Andrea. Y disculpad por nuestra falta de nivel en inglés. Prometemos que en futuras ocasiones mejoraremos. Aquí estamos mi compañera María Tarafa, que es técnica de la sección, y yo misma, Montse Mateo, jefa de sección de Políticas Alimentarias Urbanas en el Ayuntamiento de Barcelona. Y lo que haremos es explicaros cómo hemos elaborado y en qué consiste la instrucción técnica de compra pública alimentaria que ha entrado en vigor justamente este mes de marzo. Nosotros partimos de la idea de que la contratación pública responsable es un instrumento clave para impulsar políticas alimentarias con criterios ambientales, sociales y económicos, ¿no? Y que permiten fomentar la economía verde. Y en este sentido, desde el Ayuntamiento, asumimos este compromiso, ¿no? De reforzar la inclusión de estos criterios de salud, ambientales y sociales, en la compra de productos y servicios alimentarios, ¿no? Con la incorporación de cláusulas sociales y ambientales en los pliegos, tanto técnicos como administrativos. Antes de empezar, queremos hacer un breve repaso de algunos compromisos internacionales y locales que nos han permitido llegar hasta aquí. El primero es el compromiso ciudadano para la sostenibilidad, que es un acuerdo, una hoja de ruta para desarrollar todo lo que son las políticas de sostenibilidad en la ciudad con todos los agentes implicados, organizaciones, empresas, universidades, escuelas, administración, etcétera, para desarrollar todas estas políticas. Y en este ámbito también se tiene en cuenta todo lo que es la transformación del sistema alimentario. Otra fecha significativa es el 2015, en que Barcelona firma el Pacto de Política Alimentaria Urbana de Milán, lo que nos permite en el año siguiente trabajar en la primera estrategia de impulso de la política alimentaria durante el periodo de 2016 a 2019 y también la Carta Alimentaria de la región metropolitana. Claro, no tiene sentido que podamos impulsar políticas alimentarias urbanas en un ámbito administrativo único de ciudad si no se considera todo lo que es el entorno metropolitano. Otra fecha característica es el 2017, en que aprobamos el Decreto de Alcaldía de Contratación Pública Sostenible, en el cual empezamos a incorporar criterios y cláusulas ambientales y sociales, sobre todo en cuanto a compra pública alimentaria respecto a comercio justo, producto de temporada y fresco y orgánico. En el 2018, la aprobación del Plan Clima, ¿no? Con horizonte 2030, también nos permite desarrollar toda una serie de retos y líneas de actuación para avanzar en todo lo que es la mitigación y la adaptación contra la lucha de la emergencia climática, ¿no? Y dentro de estas líneas de actuación, la transformación del sistema alimentario vuelve a tener un papel importante. Posteriormente, 2020 nos permite aprobar la medida de gobierno de la estrategia de impulso de la Agenda 2030 de la ciudad, lo que nos permite también dar un paso cualitativo respecto al tema del sistema alimentario, ¿no? Sostenible. Y todo eso configura un entorno favorable para que durante el 2021 Barcelona sea la capital mundial de la alimentación sostenible, que aparte de ser el centro, ¿no?, de celebración del 7º Foro Global del Pacto de Milán, también nos permite trabajar el relato de la alimentación sostenible de forma transversal en toda una serie de proyectos, iniciativas y eventos del ámbito educativo, cultural, etcétera. Y finalmente, en el año 2022, trabajamos de forma colaborativa en la elaboración de la Estrategia de Alimentación Saludable y Sostenible de Barcelona con horizonte 2030, lo que nos permite también aprobar esta instrucción de compra pública alimentaria este año 2023. En esta instrucción partimos de una visión sistémica, holística, de lo que es la alimentación sostenible. Es decir, buscamos la interconexión de todos sus ámbitos, ¿no? El ámbito social, ambiental, de justicia y de salud. Y los objetivos que perseguimos son que haya un consumo final de dietas que sean saludables y accesibles para todo el mundo, una producción sostenible y justa de los alimentos y una agricultura que trabaje contra la emergencia climática, ¿vale? Entonces, ya entrando en materia de lo que es la instrucción, hemos establecido las prioridades de la misma en 4 paquetes. El más importante es el de la materia prima, ¿no? Hemos puesto el foco en establecer una serie de criterios, tanto de obligado cumplimiento en las especificaciones técnicas como de criterios de puntuación, en la alimentación más saludable relacionada con los azúcares y los alimentos ultraprocesados. También hemos trabajado para ampliar y consolidar lo que es el alimento ecológico y aumentar el consumo de proteína vegetal versus el animal. También hemos trabajado para consolidar y ampliar la obtención de productos de circuito corto en la distribución y en ampliar la oferta de verduras y frutas de temporada y frescas. También los alimentos de comercio justo y los alimentos con la certificación de calidad diferenciada, con denominación de origen y de proximidad. Otro paquete de medidas son los criterios más relacionados con el tema ambiental, o sea, todo lo que es la utilización de vajilla, material de mesa que sea reutilizable. También hemos trabajado en la eficiencia energética de la maquinaria que se utiliza, tanto en restauración colectiva como en máquinas de vending, en la prevención y buena gestión de los residuos, y también hemos puesto el énfasis en trabajar con planes de prevención del despilfarro alimentario, así como también reducir el impacto del transporte y la distribución. Otro paquete de criterios tiene que ver más con el procedimiento de contratación. Hemos incorporado en la definición del objeto de contrato de las licitaciones la alimentación sostenible para que después podamos desplegarlo en todo lo que son los pliegos técnicos y administrativos. Hemos intentado consolidar la presentación de la calidad de la materia prima y aumentar su presencia progresivamente y adecuado a cada casuística de cada tipo de servicio, porque cada servicio se encuentra en un momento evolutivo distinto respecto a la incorporación de criterios de sostenibilidad en las especificaciones técnicas. Y también hemos incorporado el criterio de valorar la ampliación de la oferta cualitativa, respetando estos mínimos que hemos comentado, a través de los criterios de puntuación. Y también hemos intentado favorecer la contratación de empresas de economía social y solidaria y de inserción social. Después María nos explicará con más detalle, ¿no? Y por último, también hemos querido trabajar un tema más transversal, que es la formación en estos criterios de sostenibilidad para todos los agentes implicados en el servicio y impulsar acciones de sensibilización e información a las personas usuarias. Ahora María nos continuará explicando ya en detalle la instrucción.
Thank you. Uno de los aspectos que hemos visto importantes a la hora de empezar a hacer una contratación, los técnicos que hacen las contrataciones, es los aspectos que se tienen que definir previamente antes de definir un pliego o una contratación. Algunos aspectos que vemos importantes que hay que trabajar previamente para que luego la contratación se cumpla son todos aquellos aspectos relacionados con la determinación de la partida alimentaria, el coste de la partida alimentaria en relación a los estudios de mercado que tienen que hacer los técnicos para definir bien esta contratación en este aspecto. Otro tema es el tema de la capacidad de garantizar que todo lo que pedimos en la contratación se cumple, por tanto tenemos que estar informados de la capacidad de producción local de temporada y circuito que pedimos en el pliego. Otro cuarto aspecto sería la capacidad de ese comedor o de esa cocina que tenga en calidad de manipulación, de espacios, de personal, etc. Y luego otro tema que nos preocupa y que nos han pedido desde muchos departamentos es todo el tema del seguimiento, para que todo lo que pedimos en la contratación luego podamos hacer un seguimiento realmente de lo que las empresas están ejecutando. Vale, para entender un poco la instrucción, esta instrucción que aplica todo al Ayuntamiento de Barcelona se centra en 3 ámbitos muy básicos. Uno son todos los servicios de comedores, eso incluye comedores sociales, por ejemplo, o comedores que se llevan a las familias vulnerables, comidas que se llevan a las familias vulnerables, o hasta escuelas de 0 a 3 años cuya competencia tiene el Ayuntamiento de Barcelona. No escuelas de primaria, de 6 a 12, porque esto no es competencia de Barcelona, es competencia de la Generalitat de Cataluña. Este grupo, las cantinas o comedores, por ejemplo, estamos hablando que los comedores sociales en el año 2022 cubrieron unos 450.000 comidas al año o 580.000 comidas servidas en el proyecto que se llama Comidas a Domicilio, ¿vale? Y otros muchos que entrarían en este bloque. La instrucción también cubre todos los aspectos de catering, de los servicios de Ayuntamiento de Barcelona que ofrecen caterings, y luego todos los aspectos de venta, de vending, de venta automática en las diferentes dependencias del ayuntamiento. Y aquí podéis ver los diferentes aspectos que se incluyen en la instrucción, ¿no? Desde el menú, la calidad, lo que explicaba un poco Montse antes. Lo importante de esta instrucción, que se ha hecho un cambio cualitativo en relación a que había en 2015, es que se han hecho un ejercicio para poder incluir y diferenciar bien aquellos aspectos obligatorios mínimos que se deben incluir, ¿vale? Por eso se ha hecho un ejercicio con diferentes departamentos, la Agencia de Salud Pública, diferentes agentes, para ver qué es lo mínimo, y luego hay una parte que se llama de valoración, donde cada pliego puede mejorar y puede pedir mucho más, ¿no? Pero sí que hemos intentado marcar unos límites, unos mínimos para poder evolucionar respecto al 2015. Luego, lo que comentábamos antes, también hay un esfuerzo para fomentar, dentro de cumplir la ley de competencia, el fomento de la participación de las pequeñas y medianas empresas, ¿vale? De inserción o de especiales centros de trabajo, ¿no? En eso, para establecerlo en los diferentes espacios, como puede ser la solvencia técnica y económica de los pliegos. Aquí os hemos puesto, hemos traducido la instrucción al inglés para que podáis acceder y también ver el ejemplo, y en la instrucción también hay una serie de anexos donde ayuda a las personas que van a hacer los pliegos a tratar los diferentes criterios que incluyen la instrucción. Y luego, para acabar, comentaros que la idea del ayuntamiento también es, claro, se ha hecho una apuesta para esta instrucción, pero ahora hay que hacer un buen trabajo para hacer el seguimiento de esta instrucción, ¿no? Para ello tenemos un apoyo de una empresa, una secretaría técnica, y una coordinación con 2 departamentos importantes del ayuntamiento, como son el de cambio climático y el Barcelona Activa, para poder seguir los diferentes criterios. Nosotros nos centraremos en más los alimentarios, pero los ambientales los llevarán más desde este segundo departamento. Y para acabar, que creo que nos estamos alargando un poco, perdón, tenemos preparada como una presentación con cada uno de los criterios. Aquí os hemos puesto algunos para que se puedan ver dentro del primer bloque, el bloque de los comedores, ¿no? Lo que se está pidiendo como obligatorio es que el 75% de los productos que se cubran en ese comedor sean productos frescos y de temporadas. Hay posibilidad de que se aumente ese tanto por ciento según el nivel de base que esté ese comedor. Y en la tercera columna, los instrumentos de control que se tendrá que tener para poder hacer esta trazabilidad, este control de ese criterio. En el tema de azúcares y proteína vegetal, también en concordancia con un organismo que se llama Agencia de Salud Pública de Barcelona, hemos trabajado también los mínimos y máximos que tienen que cubrir el tema de la proteína vegetal o de los azúcares. En la columna del medio, las mejoras que pueden puntuar, y en la última columna los controles que debemos tener. En el caso de los alimentos orgánicos y en el caso de cortocircuito corto se han hecho unos mínimos que pueden parecer a veces pocos, pero que por el nivel general de todos los servicios que se hacían hemos preferido ser realistas, pero para ir aumentando, y que todo el mundo cobra este mínimo, pero eso no quita que por ejemplo, las escuelas de niños pequeños que ya hasta fecha de hoy ya están dando el 90%, ¿no?, de comida ecológica, pues no partirán de este mínimo, partirán de un número mucho más elevado. Y bueno, algunos otros como serían los de cualidad diferenciada o comercio justo, donde obligatorio café y chocolate, pero se mejorará y puntuará otros productos. Un poco en eso tenemos trabajado toda la instrucción, pero para no alargarnos hemos concretado algunos criterios aquí. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, both, and congratulations on this hard work and for receiving the World Capital of Sustainable Food in 2021. Very impressive. And yes, it's great to hear about Barcelona's advancements and the work you're doing through the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. I will just mention actually on this point, so the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact Secretariat, for those who haven't heard of it before, is an international agreement signed by more than 250 cities, I believe, committed to develop sustainable food systems, and Barcelona, of course, is one of these cities and leading the way. So thank you both again, and now we have time for some questions from the audience. So please, any attendees, don't be afraid to write something in the chat. But maybe I can kick us off just to warm up a little bit. I will open the floor to all of you, maybe Andrea and Bettina, if you'd like to join us again. Would any of you like to share perhaps a challenge you faced or lessons learned from working with public procurement, either internally, for example, capacity and motivation, or even politically or externally?
Start. Okay.
Please, Andrea.
Okay, so I think that motivation is not an issue, because all the time in which we speak about procurement with procurement officer, they are very, very, very engaged on the topic. Sometimes there are some issues regarding the possibility to have a local participation to the tender, because there are a lack of infrastructures for providing exactly the quality of food and the products that we are finding. And so this is one of the challenge. And on the other hand, I think that our three cases, so Milan, Barcelona, and Copenhagen, are very interesting because they are also very diverse. So Copenhagen have the internal management of everything. So Bettina is purchasing directly the food. In our case, we have an in-house company. So we have a spectrum of the entire service. And in the case of Barcelona, they have a tender for the service. So in this free way, the transversal cutting our procurement. So it's very good to see this kind of synergies as well diversity.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrea. I don't know, Bettina, if you have anything you'd like to add about any challenges
I can just back it up and say, for me, I always, well, as you also could hear, I always get inspired by listening to other examples, and I'm right now also very focused on how we can work with health and nutrition in procurement, even though in Copenhagen we cook mainly on site, so we do not have to put into a catering contract, because there it could be more easy to work with nutrition and health, but still you can make sure that you ask for the healthier food in a different in a certain category when you ask for procurement. So these are some of the issues that are new to me, but still linked very closely. So I think for me the most inspiring part is also now that when we work cross-borderly and with the market, is also identifying what are the issues that can really help us to create a more healthy system in general. I think that's my my take on this.
Great, thanks. And maybe I guess the flip side of this question would be, is there a change that your city has done in terms of procurement you are particularly proud of, or something that's changed that resulted in an improvement that you would like to share? How, maybe I can ask Bettina, how did you react to the change in the dietary guidelines, for example?
Yeah, we were just ready to publish our tender when the new dietary guidelines came in Denmark, and unfortunately I was not linked to the work in the ministry with the dietary guidelines, so it came for me as a little bit of surprise, and I could see that the tender I made was not completely responding to them, so I was challenged and thinking, okay, how can we deal with this? So I contacted the university, because they helped create the dietary guidelines together with the ministry. So we joined up, and then saying, okay, they said, well, you need to eat different product groups have a more better effect on the health than others. And I was thinking, maybe I can use this in procurement. So I asked the university to help me group them so that the healthier food groups had a higher weight. So, and then suddenly, instead of just buying food in our procurement, I said, we want to buy food and a working relationship with our supplier on helping reaching our sustainable goals and our food policy. So suddenly we're not just buying food, we are also buying a collaboration with our supplier, because as you all know, when we do tenders, what we procure for is linked to the contract matter. So it's what the contract is about you can ask for as a criteria. So suddenly we are asking for the contract matter will also then be helping us fulfill our political goals. So this was for me a very interesting 14 days where I came up with a climate weight, and it actually really works. And we are now trying to see if we can work with a climate weight also on furnitures and clothing, and so, but of course in different areas, but how can we weigh something that are more sustainable? That it's really an interesting view on this aspect of, yeah, this is something I'm actually quite proud of working with.
As you should be. Thank you, Bettina. Yes, Maria?
Bueno, en nuestro caso, organizar el Foro Global del Pacto de Milán durante el año 2021 nos dio el empuje y la necesidad, y se generó la necesidad de trabajar en esta actualización de la compra pública alimentaria. Pero nos encontrábamos en un escenario a diferentes velocidades. O sea, no tenía nada que ver la trayectoria, por ejemplo, de la compra pública en educación infantil de 0 a 3 años, que comentaba María, que ya llevaba años incorporando el criterio de compra de producto alimentario orgánico, proximidad, etcétera, con, por ejemplo, todo lo que son las contrataciones de comedores sociales para personas vulnerables o comidas a domicilio para personas mayores, etcétera. Había una desconfianza importante por falta de conocimiento de los agentes, de los profesionales que redactan los pliegos, ¿no?, de estas contrataciones, y entonces lo que hemos tenido que hacer es todo un trabajo durante un largo año, ¿no?, de generar estas confianzas, y estas confianzas las hemos podido generar estableciendo pues todo un trabajo continuo, escuchando sus necesidades, aportando información y conocimiento concreto sobre la necesidad, ¿no?, de trabajar en esta línea que comentábamos, ¿no?, de cuidar el campo, cuidar la producción de proximidad, la importancia para la salud y la emergencia climática del producto orgánico, etcétera. Y lo que hemos hecho también es establecer un criterio de mucha flexibilidad para la incorporación de estos criterios, ¿no? Para respetar estas velocidades. Y esto ha generado también una confianza. Y después, claro, la confianza que genera poder tener un acompañamiento a partir de ahora para redactar estos pliegos, incorporar estos criterios y, sobre todo, un tema muy importante, ¿no? Buscar aquellos instrumentos de medida y de cumplimiento de la medida, porque esto es lo más importante. Podemos tener muchos criterios establecidos en la normativa, pero si después no se ejerce un control, una comprobación efectiva, pues difícilmente, ¿no? Se podrán implementar de forma efectiva, ¿no? Entonces estamos trabajando mucho en esta línea también. No sé si en este sentido, Copenhague, Milán, tenéis ideas que habéis desarrollado, ¿no? Para hacer este seguimiento, ¿no? Estos instrumentos de seguimiento que ayuden a los órganos de contratación bueno, a hacer esta supervisión de cumplimiento efectivo.
Porque cuando hablamos con las responsables que hacen las contrataciones, siempre nos dicen lo mismo, ¿no? Que a la hora de hacer un pliego, ¿no? Y seleccionar la empresa, bueno, esta parte pues ya la llevan bastante bien. Pero a la hora de hacer el seguimiento de lo que han dicho que harían, ahí es donde está el problema, por también los recursos mínimos que tienen en la administración pública, por la formación que tiene cada uno, porque claro, igual una persona lleva una licitación de muchas comidas diarias, ¿no? O sea, hay unos problemas de fondo que ahí no podemos entrar, no tenemos nosotros responsabilidad, pero que nos dicen, ¿no? Diciendo, oye, ¿cómo sigo esto que sea la trazabilidad del producto? ¿Cómo hago instrumentos para poder hacer este seguimiento de una manera ágil y que la empresa vea que esto hay que cumplirlo, que no es al principio, sino durante todo el proceso y toda la licitación y la contratación?
Yes, I can understand how public procurement can be very technical in a way, and lots of contracts might be quite intimidating. And also so many stakeholders are involved internally and externally. Yes. I actually had just one more question, if no one from the audience has any burning questions. I don't know if I can respond to this, but it's for Andrea, actually. On behalf of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, just since the context here is quite European, would you be able to say anything about public procurement practices in different contexts? I'm not sure if, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you do have any comments about how some of these practices could apply to other municipalities.
Yes, I try to understand the question because in some part you are missing, but
Sorry.
But yeah, so yeah, as you mentioned, the Milan Pact is a global commitment. So all around the world, we have practices like the practice of Copenhagen, Barcelona, and also Milan. And so, for instance, New York is one of the most active cities in this topic of North America, and they are providing each year 230 million of meals. And so New York starting a framework for a good food purchasing program in which they are engaged 15 different municipal departments, so municipal agency of city agency of under the responsibility of the mayor, and also different civil society organization, and they are trying to define a specific program to have a joint standards for the different agency for purchasing food. And this is very important because are trying to increase the impact by so many different possibility to have more organic, more fair trade, more local food. And so it's a very active city, New York, on these issues. And the mayor define a new food policy office as well an urban agricultural office. So they are active on these issues. On the other side of the world, the city of Seoul have a different program on by procurement, and they have this project named Eco-Friendly Free School Meals Projects, in which they are trying to organize short supply chains of rice by providing directly tender to the local farmers. And nowadays they have 11 different food products that are coming in the metropolitan area of Seoul. And their approach is to try to reinforce the relation with small, medium enterprises and family farms. And in this way, they are paving the scene of other Korean cities to try to do the same approach. So by procurement is a topic in which different actors are trying to invest in, and the different cities are trying to working together. And in the Milan Pact, and also with projects like food trails, we are spreading all of our ideas together with our colleagues to do a very good job.
Thank you, Andre. And I guess final chance for anyone from the World Bank who would like to ask a question. And also, I guess, between speakers, if you would like to, but I think you know each other pretty well. Okay, I think then I will pass it on to Judy Baker for closing remarks. So Judy is a global lead, urban poverty and housing, and a lead economist in the Global Practice for Social, Urban, Rural, and Resilience in the Africa region. She has worked extensively across the World Bank on projects and analytical work, particularly in East Asia, Latin America, and South Asia. So this work has covered topics related to urbanization and its impacts, urban poverty, service delivery, affordable housing, climate change, and impact evaluation. So please, Judy, take it away.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to really thank our speakers, Andrea, Bettina, Maria, and Montserrat, for sharing really valuable insights on this issue about public procurement, how it can support healthy, sustainable, and fair urban food systems. And of course, I want to thank Shobha, but she's not here to be thanked. So for me, a big takeaway from this session is really, how important listening to cities is, which is at the root of what I do. I mean, I work in cities, not specifically on urban food systems, but across the board on urban planning, urban management, sustainability, and we have, from an urban poverty lens, looked at issues around food security. So public procurement is clearly a really powerful tool to promote issues around healthy and sustainable diets. And it's, as we've heard from our speakers, cities really are at the root of this and have a critical role in shaping those food systems. Milan, I think, was really interesting, showcasing the importance of equity in public schools and how procurement can enable better student retention from student and school meals. Copenhagen demonstrated how procurement can be used to enact dietary guidelines that shape the demand for healthy and organic food. And in Barcelona, we saw that this new public purchasing regulation that has been put in place can promote sustainable and socially responsible procurement. So I think, what we've seen from the range of experiences is how important collaboration and multi-stakeholder engagement is in the procurement of healthy foods, and the policies and programs put in place for procurement should be developed in consultation with a range of stakeholders, such as local producers, suppliers, consumers, and should also take into account social, economic, and environmental considerations. And this is so consistent with so many of the areas that we work on across the urbanization sphere. On looking at the way forward, with urbanization growing and the challenges that we all know so well about climate, pandemics, conflicts, the role of cities in the overall food system will become even more important. This Food Trails project, a very interesting EU-funded initiative, is an example of how cities are taking the lead to transform their food systems to enable food security. So before I conclude, I wanted to thank Claire and the Food Trails Initiative for moderating this great session. I wanted to thank Hina and others who organized the session. And just to mention that, we have this urban food systems community of practice. So we started it, I guess it was a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And it's really nice because it brings together so many different partners, both within the World Bank and outside. And I think it provides a lot of opportunity for knowledge sharing on different topics. And just, there's so much energy around this topic that, I didn't know about. And so I'm always learning at these sessions. And for those who are not on our mailing list, please join. We have a newsletter and there's lots of interesting events that are coming up. So with that, I wanted to wish everybody a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And again, thank you to the speakers, to the chair, and to everyone.